What's up, everybody? Welcome into Stadium Drive Week 13, the regional semifinal round of the Ohio High School Football Playoffs. And tonight we're live here at Thomas Worthington High School for a matchup in Division I Region 3 regional semifinal matchup between the number 1 seed Gahanna Lincoln Golden Lions and the number 4 seed Upper Arlington Golden Bears. It's going to be a fantastic game. We're also going to feature another game on our show tonight in Division 4 Region 15. The Sheridan Generals, the 2 seed, taking on the number 3 seed Bishop Hartley Hawks. That's going to be another good one as well. Interviews with all the coaches featured in this game tonight, both games tonight. So, fantastic show for you. Thank you so much for tuning in live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We really appreciate your support all season long and all through these playoffs. But this Gahanna Lincoln and Upper Arlington game tonight is going to be fantastic because Upper Arlington, their defense over the last 5 weeks, 5-game win streak, they have allowed a combined 23 points to their opponents over the last 5 weeks. It's truly unbelievable, and they're coming off a super emotional roller coaster win in round 2 of the playoffs last week against Pickerington Central, 23-17 in triple overtime. So that's about as intense as it gets for high school playoff football. And so Upper Arlington has to come down from that now and then play arguably the best team in the state all season long in Gahanna Lincoln. Undefeated, 12-0, and an OCC Ohio title. They have the OCC Ohio Player of the Year in Dior Hubbard at running back. But not only is he a great running back, he's a great receiver out of the backfield as well. Just so much talent on both of these teams. And really, I think it's a matchup between Gahanna Lincoln's offense, Bruce Ward's offense, versus Justin Buttermore and Upper Arlington's defense. This is truly, I think, going to be a tough battle in the first half as both teams feel each other out. The second half is where we might start to see some separation. Who separates from who? We'll have to wait and see, but we've got a great show for you on tap tonight. Gahanna Lincoln is averaging 38 points per game this season, and last week against Grove City, the number 9 seed, might have suffered a little bit of a scare, a bit more of a scare than they would have liked. They were up 3 scores in the fourth quarter on Grove City, and they fired back in that game and managed to close it out. Gahanna Lincoln is just far too talented to not be able to close out that game, but that's also the ebb and flow of high school playoff football. That's how things go. Momentum can just change on a dime. And Gahanna, to their credit, and Bruce Ward's credit, that they were able to get the job done and move on to the regional semifinal round against this Upper Arlington team. And, you know, Justin Buttermore has just put on 5 straight master classes defensively. I mean, to allow 23 points combined to 5 teams, you're starting with that Olentangy Orange game in Week 8. That really is what kind of, kick-started or kind of turned their season around, because they had lost 2 games in a row going into that game. And that Orange game, an explosive Orange offense, Levi Davis at quarterback, they shut them out and they won 10-0. Low-scoring game. And it was low-scoring against Pick Central last week, too. And it was tied at 7-all at the end of regulation. They had a field goal that they missed at the end of the fourth quarter that could have won them the game. And I'm sure Coach Buttermore would have rather make that field goal, because it's super stressful going into not just 1, not 2, but 3 overtimes. So truly just an unbelievable game from Upper Arlington. And I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup for you tonight. We do want to thank our sponsors, maxeffortmuscle.com. Always love shouting them out on this show. We really appreciate their support all season long. They have the best tasting protein in the game. I use it every single day. I use some of their supplements as well, and I have a couple T-shirts. So I love everything that they do. Not only with the supplements, the great tasting supplements, but they put out amazing fitness content as well, diet content, anything that you want to better your life in some way, whether it's diet, it's fitness, it's taking supplements, whatever it is, they've got it covered for you. maxeffortmuscle.com. Go follow them on all the on Instagram. That's where I follow them, and they're great stuff. We love Corey G and all the guys, so we really appreciate them. But let's hop into our first of 3 interviews tonight here on Stadium Drive. We're going to start with that Division 4 Region 15 game, the Sheridan Generals and the Bishop Hartley Hawks, the 2 seed versus the 3 seed. We talked to head coach Paul Carver III about his Generals kind of peaking at the right time. Their defense got back on track last week after allowing 20-plus points in the 3 games prior to round 2 of the playoffs. and they had a shutout win against Gallia Academy in Week 12. So Coach Culver talks about that game, peaking at the right time, and how he's preparing for this Bishop Hartley Hawks offense that is very unique in the way that they do things. It's a style of football that we don't really see much of anymore, and so it's kind of smash mouth. That's what the Generals are, is smash mouth, but this might be smash mouth 2.0. It's going to be a fantastic game tonight. So here's head coach Paul Culver III of the Sheridan Generals here on Stadium Drive, Week 13, the regional semifinal round of the Ohio High School Football Playoffs. Thanks so much for joining us here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We really appreciate it. Here's Coach Culver. All right, we're here with head coach Paul Culver III of the Sheridan Generals going into Week 13, the regional semifinal round of the OHSAA playoffs, and taking on number 3 Bishop Hartley this week. Coach, really appreciate your time joining our show. And last week, a shutout victory, 42-0 against Gallia Academy. And if you look at the way your defense played the couple weeks prior, giving up at least 20 points per game, quite a few yards. But your defense seemed to kind of get back on track, back to Sheridan Red Rage football, and you force some turnovers. Obviously, like you get shut out, like I mentioned. But does it feel like now that your defense and your team as a whole is back on track, back in a rhythm, and back playing the way you want them to play going into the regional semifinal round?
100%. I mean, when you give up 600 yards passing in 2 games and 50 points, that's not going to be successful on a regular basis unless you're, there are teams out there that can generate, more offense than that, but that's not us. We've always been like a defense and ball control possession offense. So yeah, that wasn't us for a long time. And it was fixable, right? So like the kids didn't panic, and to my defensive coach's staff credit, they didn't panic. And, just kept, the expression is Novocaine, give it time, it'll work. Believe in who we are. We might have to make a couple tweaks, and I think you saw that against Gallia.
Now, the run game, I feel like, has just been extremely prominent. You mentioned ball control, which is something that you favor. Like the run game, I feel like has just been so dominant and powerful the last handful of weeks. Like end of regular season, going into these playoffs, like Justin Munyon has just been running over people, and he's had tons of room to run. Caden Sheridan has really showcased his ability as a runner, not only as a thrower as well. And like Zach Hines, when he comes in and takes some carries, he's efficient moving the football. Like what's went into the offensive production running the football? Because obviously you're really strong up front. How we've been able to move people around and create those running lanes for those guys to make things happen.
Yeah, so a big part of it was finally just gelling offensively, especially up front. In a lot of ways, while we had some pieces back, we didn't really have a guy that was a returning, every down offensive starter back. Um, Jack Backus, or excuse me, Connor Backus and Jack Robinette, both saw time there last year and started different games, but they all ultimately were pushed into service because there were injuries. And so then you start talking Showalter at center as a first-year starter. Cole Davis played only defense. Cole Davis is Cole Davis, so he could have played offense anytime we wanted him to. And then Creed Hill has gotten a lot of snaps, and then Hunter Seitz is a senior that has stepped into that role. So we had a lot of injuries, and I think only finally in the last 3 weeks have those guys played the same position 3 games in a row. We've had basically 6 bodies that have been in and out and moved around, and essentially all 6 of them were first-year starters. And it took us a while to kind of really get on the same page. They still were playing hard, but when you start running an actual offense, the idea is that all the if-then statements of what the defense could do to you. So if they, then we, right? And that's hard. That takes a lot of time. And so I started to see that in the last couple of weeks.
Now with this Bishop Hartley team, and really the further you get in the playoffs, obviously the better the teams are that you're going to play, unless there's some massive upsets, which we have. I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot of upsets. For the most part, teams that were favored to win the upper seeds have been winning most of these games. But the further you get in the playoffs, the teams get better, and the games are harder. But Bishop Hartley's played some tough D2 teams on their schedule in the regular season. They beat a St. C team that was 8-2 in the regular season last week. And they beat them by 2 possessions. But what have you seen on the film this week that that you've got to be prepared for, that Bishop Hartley does offensively, that'll challenge your defense once again? And then, I guess same thing on the other side of the ball as well.
So my dad would have called it phone booth football. It's like pack everybody inside of a phone booth and just start trading punches because they pack it in, right? They still get on the perimeter and they have a lot of speed and they create big plays, but they are foot-to-foot splits. They regularly have two tight end sets or two fullback sets, and there's even some where you go pure heavy, which is two tight ends plus two fullbacks, and that basically means one tailback's running behind 10 blockers because the quarterback even throws blocks on some of their plays. So forcing teams to play defensive football that they haven't played in 20 years, right? Like nobody does this anymore. It used to be this was not everybody, but it was common. You saw genuine smash mouth football. There are teams that think they're smash mouth. Like we like to say that we have a very physical run presence, but this is right out of the 1920s or something like that. And so to their credit, they are really good at it. And, my dad always said one of the things that gave us an advantage offensively for the option is most teams don't really run it. They think they do, but they don't. Right? And so teams can't prepare for us. And that's Hartley's advantage. Like seeing that kind of personnel groupings in the year 2023 is so rare that it gives them an advantage. You can't simulate it in practice, and you can't simulate the physicality. They're very good at it. And then defensively, they're just super aggressive, like athletes everywhere. So they pose a real challenge.
What have you been telling your guys each and every week, each round of the playoffs, the further along that you advance? Is it kind of a just survive and advance mentality? What do you get into what do you tell your guys? What do you try to put into their heads as you've moved further each round of the playoffs to give them the confidence and the belief that no matter who we play, no matter what seed they are, no matter where we are, we can go out there and beat these teams week after week and accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish?
I've certainly used the expression survive in advance, like you said. That's absolutely the goal. I mean, it doesn't matter if our defense gives up points as long as our offense scores more, right? It doesn't matter if our offense plays poorly as long as our defense, does its job and shuts somebody out or something like that. But we also kind of changed maybe the focus. I'll be honest, like we think we're a pretty good football team. And so there were times this year in the season that we're challenging our defense that we expect to shut this team out. We expect to shut them out. If they score on us against our starters, then we've done something wrong. We haven't played to our capability. And then flip that around offensively, like we're going to score 35 points. Like if we don't score 35 points on some level, we've failed. Our offense should score, 3 times in the first half, twice in the second half, or vice versa. That depends on whether you get the first kick. That's pretty realistic. Depends on the pace of the game. But as soon as you get in the playoffs, it's like, look, they're going to hurt us. They're going to pop a big play. They're going to daze us. They're going to score. And it's not because we expect them to, but we want their kids to just be realistic that you're going to take a haymaker shot, right? And you grin through it. You get up off the mat and you throw one back. That's this next level football. There's no bad football teams left. There's no even just decent football teams left. Maybe somewhere, right? But incredibly unlikely. So you're going to take shots. The coaches staff know exactly what they're doing. So you have to play well and understand it's going to be counterpunching and reacting from there. And so they can't get rattled from that. Sometimes I think you see that when you see a blowout in the playoffs, it's not because there was a wide gap in the ability. It's because that team could not believe that it wasn't going their way. They were 10-0 through the regular season, now 12-0 in the playoffs, and all of a sudden they finally met their match, and they can't handle it. So that's not our focus. Our focus is, look, this is a fourth quarter, 48-minute plus battle.
Coach, best of luck this Friday and get to the regional final, man. You guys have had a fantastic season, and it looks like now you're peaking at the right time, which is great to see. But best of luck. Go get a win. Keep moving on, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join our show as always.
Always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Welcome back here to Stadium Drive live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Head coach Paul Culver III of the Sheridan Generals getting ready for his regional semifinal matchup against the number 3 seed Bishop Hartley Hawks. And if you look here on your screen at what's on the horizon for both schools, for both Sheridan and Bishop Hartley, the winner of this game will play the winner of the number 1 seed Steubenville Big Red and the number 13 seed Indian Valley Braves. So Indian Valley, a lower seed in this playoff bracket, they have pulled off, I guess you could say, 2 upsets in a row, round 1 and round 2, to move into the regional semifinal round. So the winner of Sheridan Bishop Hartley this evening will play either Steubenville or Indian Valley in the regional final. And again, that's in Division 4, Region 15. But now let's get back to this game here at Thomas Worthington Stadium. The Gahanna Lincoln Golden Lions, the number 1 seed in Division I, Region 3, taking on the number 4 seed Upper Arlington Golden Bears. It's going to be a fantastic matchup here this evening, and if I talked to head coach Bruce Ward of the Golden Lions this week, as well as head coach Justin Buttermore of Upper Arlington. But talking to Bruce Ward on the phone, his team suffered a little bit of a scare last week in round 2 of the playoffs. They were up 3 scores in the fourth quarter on Grove City, and Grove City was able to claw back into that game, and Gahanna didn't maybe do the best job closing that out. But it was a team that they played earlier on in the season, and it's hard to beat a team twice, especially when you kind of have a better idea of what things they do offensively and defensively schematically. So Grove City had a good game plan, and it started working for them in the fourth quarter, and they almost pulled off one of the bigger upsets in Ohio high school football, like playoff football this year. But fortunately for Gahanna, they were able to get the job done and move on. But head coach Bruce Ward talks about the challenge of closing out Grove City and what that did for his football team, how he kind of simulates situational football in practice to be better prepared for those kind of situations where if you are up big or up maybe just one score, how do you close out a team? How do you be good situationally so you can move on to the next round of the playoffs? And then talks about this Upper Arlington defense that has just been so good the last 5 weeks. How do you prepare for a team that has done just such a phenomenal job defensively over the last 5 or 6 weeks? And this chess match with head coach Justin Buttermore. So here is head coach Bruce Ward talking to him on the phone. So no video, just audio. Conversation between me and head coach Bruce Ward of the Gahanna Lincoln Golden Lions here on Stadium Drive. So, all right, we're here with head coach Bruce Ward of the Gahanna Lincoln Golden Lions going into Week 13, the regional semifinal round of the OHSAA playoffs in Division I. Coach, really appreciate your time joining our show this week. And in Week 12 against Grove City, you got to win 48-42, but you were up 3 scores in the fourth quarter, and Grove City kind of fired back. And I guess, what did you make of the way your team closed that game out? Because it was probably a bit more of a scare than you really wanted.
Just played, or you've already played this season. But we've had some injuries, and we're trying to piece stuff together and get through. And Grove City has a heck of an offense, and things went their way there towards the end, and we hung on. I'm proud of our kids for fighting through and finishing that game with the W. But obviously, if we want to continue to advance, we got to clean some things up and get a lot better.
Is there a way to practice that, during the week situationally? Because obviously, there's no way, I guess, to really simulate playoff football because momentum can change so quick and there's so much emotion. But are there things that you can do during practice, during the week that can kind of help you better prepare for those situations where you're up big on a team and you can kind of close out those games maybe a bit better?
Just because you're up doesn't mean the team's going to quit. Those teams are out by now. The teams left are teams that want to win and find ways of winning. And, it's a lesson we had to learn, and hopefully we learned it. And our guys are more aware of that situation and continue to fight and do something better this coming Friday.
Now, Upper Arlington this week, Justin Buttermore is probably one of the better defensive minds just in the state of Ohio. I mean, he has put on the last 5 weeks for his team. He's kind of put on a defensive masterclass, a combined 23 points that he surrendered to his opponents. And he just does such a good job schematically of mixing things up, bringing pressure, or, keep putting by more guys in the box to stop the run, more guys on the outside to defend against the pass. He's just so good schematically, defensively. What do you think that chess match is going to be like? I mean, how are you preparing for everything that he does defensively that he's going to try to limit what you guys do?
We got to see, like you said, it's a chess match. We have to see what he's trying to do and find a way to combat that and see what we can do within our scheme to get at him. And you said it again, it's going to be a chess match. And those pieces move, and we got to be able to adjust and adapt to what he's doing or trying to do to us and have an answer for it. I don't know what that answer will be right now. Obviously, we'll have to see, what happens on Friday and how they're playing us and what they're taking away and maybe what they're giving us, and see if we can find a way to move the ball a little bit. But he's been here before with multiple teams and understands how to do it, so we'll have our work cut out for us.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time joining our show this week, and best of luck this Friday. 12-0, man. You've had a terrific season to this point, but I know you guys aren't done yet, so go get a win, man. Keep moving on to the regional final and on beyond that, but I really appreciate your time, and it's a pleasure, as always, to talk to you. This is the defense that Bruce Ward and his Gahanna Lincoln Golden Lion offense is going up against tonight. Defensive masterclasses the last 5 weeks for Upper Arlington, 23 combined points allowed. So if you do the math, do the average, 4.6 points per game over the last 5 weeks, which is just nuts. Week 8 got things started versus Olentangy Orange, explosive young offense. The Pioneers held them scoreless and a 10-0 win. And we were at that game for Stadium Drive in Week 8, and that was just, defensive struggle through the first half, and then UA was able to score in the second half and close out that game. Week 9 against Dublin Kaufman, still in these playoffs, 21-3 victory, and the final game of the regular season in Week 10 versus Hilliard Davidson, a 10-0 win, another shutout, low-scoring game. Week 11, first round of the playoffs, a home game versus Thomas Worthington, 46-3 win. The offense was dominant. And only a handful of games this year they've really exploded as far as scoring a lot of points. A large portion of their wins, they're low-scoring games. And then in Week 12, Pick Central, 23-17 win in 3 overtimes. And it was 7-7 at the end of regulation. So if you just want to do by quarters in 20 quarters, really UA had only given up 13 points instead of 23. But just defensive brilliance from head coach Justin Buttermore through the last 5 weeks, 5-game win streak. They've just been remarkably good, and remarkably good. It's not even the best way to put it. They've just been dominant, but they're going to need to be dominant again this evening, because this Gahanna Lincoln offense is so good, and really I think it starts and ends with their running back Dior Hubbard. So Buttermore talks about containing him. Obviously, you're not going to stop him. He gets his, but how do you limit him in a way where it kind of handicaps their offense a little bit? And Buttermore also just talks about what's gone into the defensive brilliance over the last 5 weeks, and I guess what the secret sauce is, if there is one. Clearly there is one if you're holding teams to a combined 23 points over 5 games. It's pretty incredible. But here is head coach Justin Buttermore of the Upper Arlington Golden Bears going into this regional semifinal matchup with Gahanna Lincoln. Talks about the play of his defense, the roller coaster game last week against Pick Central, the emotional nature of that game, and this matchup with Bruce Ward's offense and Dior Hubbard. Here is head coach Justin Buttermore on Stadium Drive, live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're here with head coach Justin Buttermore of the Upper Arlington Golden Bears going into the regional semifinal round of the OHSAA playoffs in Division I. And coach, really appreciate you being here, chopping it up about some football here in week 13. Talk to me about that 3 OT win in round 2 against Pick Central, 23-17. You end 4 quarters of play, tied at 7-all, low scoring game, just defensive battle. Talk to me about the emotion and just getting through 3 overtime periods, being so great situationally, offensively and defensively, to not only score, but then you get that goal line stand there at the end. Just talk to me about everything that went into that 3 OT win against a really, really good Pick Central team.
Yeah, they're really talented. We knew it was going to be a dogfight. We knew it was going to be something that was difficult, and we knew it was going to have to be low scoring. We're not an explosive team. We've won with taking care of the football and playing good defense. And so we knew to win, it needed to be a low-scoring game, and obviously we were able to do that. We had the field goal to win it at the end of regulation that we missed. And when you get into overtime, like you said, it's such an emotional roller coaster. I think the team whose players handle that the best are usually the ones that come out on top. It's very difficult when you get into those situations and scores and back and forth. You think you've won the game or you think you've lost the game. And like I said, it went back and forth those first 2 overtimes. So, I thought our kids just handled things really, really well, even when we got that interference call in the 3rd overtime and they end up going for it on 4th and 2. Just a lot of guts by our kids to find a way to get the stop and then, then run the ball in. We didn't want to have to rely on a field goal attempt if we didn't have to in that 3rd overtime. But it was eerily similar to a couple years ago, obviously 2 completely different teams. But, when we won that game in overtime, there was a goal line stand in one of those overtimes as well. So it was just kind of a crazy, crazy moment, and I'm happy for the kids being able to celebrate that.
So you mentioned that your offense isn't necessarily an explosive one, but you take care of the football and you rely a lot on your defense. How have you been able to put together these defensive masterpieces and just be so situationally good the last 5 weeks? During your 5-game win streak, you've allowed a total of 23 combined points, and you're playing against some really explosive offenses, some really good football teams. I mean, how have you been able to do that the last 5 weeks, hold teams to a combined 23 points?
The credit goes to the players. I mean, the kids have, starting with that Orange game, I think that was the first time we talked, was going into that Orange game. And we were coming off 2 losses. We had struggled. We just weren't playing very well on either side of the ball. And we put together a really good defensive performance, and we're able to shut out a good, explosive Orange team. And from there, I think the kids just got a little bit of confidence. But we've got some experienced kids. We've lost some good players to injuries, but on that side of the ball, but we've got some experienced kids, and they communicate very well defensively, and they take a lot of pride in playing great defense. And they truly, we play a team brand of defense. I've told people that before. It's not about individuals; it's about everybody doing their job. And this group has been great down the stretch, and just being in position and understanding what the plan is, and just rallying to the football. We're getting a lot of guys there, and a lot of guys that are playing really, really their best football of the year right now.
Oh, the toughest test yet is probably this week against Gahanna. They're undefeated. They've probably been the best team in Division I all season long and averaging just under 40 points per game. And so defensively, you're going to have to put together another masterpiece. But Dior Hubbard, 19 carries, $193, 3 touchdowns rushing, and then he had a touchdown through the air as well. Is he the guy that you kind of have to put your attention on defensively? Is he, so to speak, the head of the snake, and then if you try to not necessarily eliminate him but limit his production, does it make things easier for your defense in that game this Friday?
Yeah, he's an unbelievable player. I mean, I think he's the best player we've seen all year. He's explosive. He hits the line of scrimmage so fast. He breaks tackles. He's strong, and he's a great receiver out of the backfield, which I didn't really know until we got the film, because we haven't played them in the past, but he's terrific out of the backfield as well. But just an outstanding player. There's no doubt that he's the guy that you've got to try to, I don't want to say stop, because I don't know that anybody's stopped him, but he's the guy you've got to try to limit. You've got to try to limit big plays from him and force them into down and distance that you want to be in, and where they don't want to hand it off or can't hand it off. So, he's a great player. Their quarterback is a terrific player as well, but certainly I think it begins and ends with the running back.
How do you do that? Do you just stuff the box defensively? Do you commit another man there and just force them to? I mean, you just mentioned their quarterback is also really good, but do you force him to beat you, or and put another guy in the box, or I guess schematically, how do you look at it?
Well, I think you've got to do different things. I mean, their quarterback is also a coach's kid, and having my own boys play for me. I just know he recognizes things better than your average quarterback. He sees things. And so you've got to be careful with what you do. I mean, they've got some explosive players on the edges too. And so it's not like you can pack the box and just leave guys open, because he's going to find them and he's going to make big plays. And he also is a pretty good runner. He can pull it on some of their zone stuff and hurt you as well. So you got to really, I think you just really got to mix it up and try to keep them, in a position where they don't know exactly what you're doing. And that's hard to do, because like I said, they're good. They're well-versed. They played some really good teams, but certainly you have to kind of mix it up versus them and give them some different looks.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time joining us this morning, and best of luck this Friday. It's going to be a fantastic game between you and Gahanna Lincoln, but always a pleasure to talk to you, and best of luck, and keep this train rolling, man.
All right. Appreciate it.
Dior Hubbard is the guy to stop tonight for Upper Arlington, the OCC Ohio Player of the Year, and last week against Grove City in their 48-42 win, 19 carries, a $193 on the ground, and 3 rushing touchdowns. And as a receiver, 3 receptions, 56 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So 4 total touchdowns and over 200 total yards from scrimmage. Just an absolute beast, and you heard Coach Buttermore talk about his impact and his skill level as a running back, just how fast, strong, and the great vision that he has. Dior Hubbard is the man for Gahanna Lincoln, but they've also got some other great players as well. If you look at, Brennan Ward, their quarterback, as well as Jalen Scott on the outside, just some terrific talent, really, all across the board. It's going to be a tough challenge is really putting it lightly. It's the biggest challenge of the season, I think. If you can get through Gahanna Lincoln, if you can somehow limit them enough and score enough, which that sounds obvious, right? Like you limit how much they score more than them. Obvious, it's very obvious. But if Coach Buttermore can find a way to do that, just limit the explosiveness of this offense just a little bit, and then situationally, if you get the ball in the red zone, can you put points on the board? That's going to be the key tonight for Upper Arlington and their offense if they're going to have a chance in this game. But let's take a look at some other games going on that we're covering in these playoffs. So, regional semifinal round, OHSAA playoffs, round 3. Here we go. Maybe. There it is. So in eastern and northeastern Ohio, these are the games that we're going to be at this evening. We have number 7 Bell Fountain at number 3 Granville. Granville still undefeated, 12-0, and a huge dramatic win over Tri-Valley last week. Division 3, Region 11. Number 3 Bishop Hartley versus number 2 Sheridan in Division 4, Region 15. And we featured that game earlier on in our show. Number 4 Northmore versus number 1 Garaway in Division 6, Region 23. And then Central and Western Ohio at the bottom. Number 12 Springfield versus number 1 Olentangy, Division 1, Region 2. Number 6 Dublin Kaufman versus number 2 Olentangy Berlin in Division 1, Region 2 as well. And then, of course, the game we're here at tonight, number 4 Upper Arlington, number 1 Gahanna Lincoln. This is it, man. We cover, 27 schools for football during the season, and we're only down to 6 games left that we're going to be at this week. And next week, it could be half that. It could be down to 3. Football it's not over yet. I don't want it to be over yet, but we are really on the home stretch now, on the path towards the state championship. And one of these 2 teams is moving on to the regional final next week, and it's going to be fantastic. If you take a look at what's at stake for both of these teams and look at their bracket, really, like who they're going to be playing next. Let's blow this up for you. So for Gahanna and UA, they're at the top of your screen, the 1 and 4 seed. They'll play the winner of number 2 Hilliard Bradley and number 3 Pickerington North. And that would be very interesting. If Gahanna were able to win this game this evening and Pick North were able to beat Hilliard Bradley, that would set up a rematch of Week 10, which was for the OCC Ohio title. Both teams were undefeated at the time, and that was a dramatic game as well. That was a double OT win for Gahanna. Gahanna was down multiple points in that game, found a way to come back, win in double overtime. I believe they sealed it with an interception. That could potentially be a regional final rematch, which would be unbelievable to say the least. So that's going to be really, really good, really interesting to see. I'm excited to see not only how this game turns out tonight, but the rest of the way, like the other side of the bracket, if Pick North were to come out of that. Hilliard Bradley also had a tremendous season, also really, really good, and only 1 loss for them. So these 4 teams left in this region, Division 1, Region 3, it's about as good as it gets for high school football in Ohio. But Really want to thank you so much for being here for Stadium Drive. We're about to wrap up our show tonight, and we're about to kick off this game in about half an hour or so, so I'm going to pack up, maybe throw on some more layers, and then I'm going to be running up and down the sidelines trying to get you some social media highlights to put out on Twitter. So just make sure you follow us on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just for updates on the games that you're looking to follow. I'll be here doing Gahanna UA tonight. And I know we have our guy Aaron Sprague, the man, the myth, the legend, is at Sheridan for Sheridan Bishop Hartley. So just make sure you follow us on all the socials so that way you can keep up with the games you want to follow and really see how these turn out. This is just such good stuff, man. Make sure you check out our Unreal highlights next week for all these playoff games that we're covering. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, maxeffortmuscle.com. Best tasting protein in the game. They're so good. Can't recommend them enough. They are the best. But number 1 seed Gahanna Lincoln, number 4 seed Upper Arlington, Bruce Ward versus Justin Buttermore. I think this is about as good as it gets, man. This is some great stuff here. So Will Ford signing off for now on Storied Rivals Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us on Stadium Drive Week 13, the regional semifinal round. We'll see you in the regional final next week, Week 14, man. Great stuff.